And speaking of the debates, though, I will say a couple of days ago on the show, I was advocating and even going as far as to say that it was my fantasy for Joe Rogan to host a debate between Trump and Biden. But, just a couple of days later, Joe Rogan has to come around to, embarrass me, prove me wrong, make me look stupid, which is that he's, first of all, his new studio just looks dumb, in my opinion. I can't get over
Dude,
this.
I haven't watched a single clip or anything. I can't get over how it looks. I'm like, it literally looks like a sex dungeon.
It does.
Like
It looks
him
like
and
a
Alex
weird,
Jones are in there doing something dirty, dude. They're doing something crazy.
Along with the studio and his weird sudden move to Texas and move to Spotify.
To avoid taxes. That was so obvious and painful to watch.
I know.
Like, it's like, how much money do you need, dude?
He even admitted it, I think, but it's
dude, literally, and then all of these other, all of his crony comedians that also have 500,000 viewers.
And now Ben Shapiro is moving to Nashville and all this shit. Anyway, it seems like along with all this stuff, I mean, Joe Rogan is kind of reverting to his more lazy thought conservative days of old. And I've been a defender of Joe Rogan. When Bernie was endorsed by Joe Rogan, publicized it, and then was subsequently attacked by the more culturally left-minded people. I defended him full-heartedly. I was like, this is ridiculous. Joe Rogan is kind of, sure, he said some questionable stuff. He's a comedian. He's a kind of a meathead.
But he's the biggest broadcasting voice in America.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that a lot of his, jokes and stuff, it genuinely does come down to quote-unquote locker room talk, unlike some of the stuff that, people use to excuse with that terminology. I do think that he's kind of that kind of guy who has this kind of shit talking conversation.
I know he really leans into the terminology, but he is very apish to me.
Oh, 100%. And he was having on Bernie Sanders, he was having on Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kalinske, people like that. It
Abby
felt like
Martin, he's had Abby Martin on a bunch of times.
Cornel West. It felt like he was having a serious kind of reconsideration of his philosophy, transitioning towards the left. And then he had Bernie on. After that, though, after Bernie lost, and then seemingly since COVID hit and then the George Floyd protests erupted, it seems like he's really been drawn back into the right-wing culture. He's been having a lot more of those people on his podcast, and lately, the few times that I've tuned in lately to his show, I've been met with some pretty cringy fucking talking points and dumb stuff. And I mean, even regardless of the misinformation, just some really dumb, lazy talking points. He's still bitching about the masks. He's still bitching about, California, blaming the issues with California on the left, as if Gavin Newsom is some kind of leftist, and if leftists are all just obsessing over how to shut down bars and, comedy clubs and force
dude, it seems
masks.
like all of his political opinions have slowly skewed more and more closer to Kid Rock's.
So, I mean, that's going a little far, but I don't know. It just seems like with the money from that Spotify deal, it seems like he's kind of just given up on trying to be right when it comes to politics.
Yeah, dude. And it's also just I feel like, I don't know. I feel like all of his show has gotten really stale. And so it's just to the point that you mentioned, I still I don't even all of my reasons for wanting him to support or wanting him to moderate a debate, I still stand by. I'm really, I would be really interested in a 4-hour.
I'd still,
100%. Yeah. But because I just think that any candidate that can't hold up for 4 hours, and I don't think either of these candidates don't deserve to be president, but
right.
Anyway,
and just to clarify, the misinformation that he did spread was to suggest that some of the Oregon wildfires were actually set by left-wing liberal environmentalist activists, which I don't really understand the rationale behind that. I guess just to get attention, but why someone would start why a left-winger would start a forest fire as an activist statement is beyond me. And apparently this was a lie that was going on around the Breitbart and those kind of media circles, which shows you who Joe Rogan is tuned into. Also, the fact that he picked up on this piece of, this falsehood, which essentially tries to scapegoat leftism and social environmental activism for this climate catastrophe. And a lot of these fires, have been started by, I remember a lot of the fires, people in Brazil said the fires in the rainforest might have been started by paper companies that wanted that land anyway. They were just this is a quicker way and cheaper way to deforest, basically, just to start fires. So, to obfuscate the fact that forest fires are A, the product of climate change, and B, the product of the deforestation industry, to obfuscate away from that and pin to scapegoat on the leftist activists is just so stupid and honestly dumb. And I mean, I'm not this kind of person that says well, if you have a big podcast, then every single thing you need to say needs to be 100% correct because you have a big platform and therefore you have a big responsibility. I don't agree with that. I mean, I people that are shooting from the hip and talking shit, and I like broadcasters and
what do we do? You know
podcasters.
what I mean?
What we do, but I do think there is something to be said if you have that big of a platform. Come on, that's just a blatant, obvious falsehood. And luckily he did apologize. So I will say that he did apologize, but
which is something that I will say that makes him stand out from the Tucker Carlsons or the Rachel Maddows. Like, when have you heard Rachel Maddow apologize for fucking
that is true.
Russiagate, or when have you heard Tucker Carlson apologize for any of the other fucking abhorrent, unproven fucking lies he said?
And obviously, I'm not trying to shit on Joe Rogan. I still think he's better than most of those exact, media morons. I'd rather him moderate a debate than Tucker Carlson or anyone like that, or Rachel Maddow for that matter.
Sure.
It's just that I just feel disappointed in Joe Rogan because I did feel like he was on the precipice of like a true intellectual evolution, and now I just feel like he's kind of receding back in, and it really goes back to ultimately what conservatism is all about, which is just selfishness. It seems like I don't want to pay taxes, I don't want to wear a mask, I don't want to go to the comedy club. That's what's ultimately forced him back into his conservative ways.